Hi, my name is Holly Ely, and I am going to give you an intro to brush lettering. Several people have asked me on the Bible journaling communities that I'm on about how I do my brush lettering or what tools I use, so I decided to make this video of a very basic introduction to brush lettering. You can follow me on Periscope at HollyGaleEly3 and on Instagram at the Harper Paper Company. And on my Instagram, I post calligraphy videos and pictures of my Bible journaling. I have been doing calligraphy, different kinds of calligraphy, for about 4 or 5 years, but I've only been practicing semi-regularly for about a year. So I would definitely still consider myself a beginner, but I do have a little bit of stuff I can add or I can teach to you all. Here is an example of kind of my classic calligraphy. This is actually what I learned and started out doing, just the regular pointed pen calligraphy, and this made it onto my save the date. You can kind of see what that looks like there. That's actually an image of my calligraphy, not the actual calligraphy itself. But right here, I started filling this out, and for some reason I stopped in the middle of it. And I'll go ahead and show you some of my calligraphy within my Bible. This is my Bible, my journaling Bible. This is my first brush lettering entry that I put in my Bible, and I just started doing brush lettering. Like I explained, I first did the pointed pen calligraphy with the reservoir of ink where you dip your pen in. And this is watercolor with a brush. And unfortunately, my lettering kind of grew, and that's one of the hallmarks of a beginner. And now, usually, whenever I do any sort of calligraphy in my Bible, I make sure that I put a piece of paper behind it so I can see the lines. You can barely see them in this video, but it does help me quite a bit. And here is another couple of entries that I've done in my Bible, and this is with a brush lettering pen, which is actually a little bit easier to do, in my opinion, than the watercolor calligraphy. But I really like these two entries, and I'm very pleased with them. Okay, I'm going to start off and tell you with the kind of paper I often use for my calligraphy practice and what I'll be doing calligraphy on in this video. This is just a plain sheet of printer paper, and you can't tell that there are little, very, very light gray dots on this piece of paper. And I printed this out with the black dots as well, so you could kind of see a little bit better. And this just gives me some guidelines and helps my letters stay the same size. And I will link to both the black dot and the gray dot paper on my blog. Okay. I do think that brush lettering is much easier with brush pens. However, I know that everyone doesn't have those laying around their house, so I'm actually going to demonstrate with the watercolor brushes, just the paintbrushes in my watercolor set. But I do want to introduce you to the brush pens that I recommend and the ones that I do not. I love the Tombow dual brush pens. I got these off of Amazon.com. I think they were $16.99, and they are the gold standard. Unfortunately, they don't sell these at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's. Michael's does have something that looks like it's supposed to be a generic Tombow, but it was still pretty expensive, so I didn't really want to buy them, just to try out and see. I'll just kind of show a letter. Just a few letters, and you'll have to excuse, you probably can hear my dog in the background. She's always hanging out with me. So the Tombows are the #1 pen that I recommend, and I would actually recommend this over the paintbrushes. So if you're serious about learning brush lettering, I would highly recommend that you order some Tombos. Besides Amazon.com, Dick Blick Art Supplies sells them. It's a little bit cheaper. They sell them for, I think, $2.12 per Tombow, and you can get any sort of color that you want. I have the Groovy collection. So, this pen right here I actually got from Hobby Lobby. It's the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen, and it's a brush. I actually originally got this out to show you that it didn't work very well for brush lettering, and I was surprised to learn that it actually isn't too terribly bad. I just didn't know how to hold it when I first purchased this pen. The third brush pen that I'm going to show you today is the brush pen that I do not recommend for brush lettering. I purchased this pen because I wanted to try out brush lettering, and I found that it did not work very well, and even after practicing my technique a little bit, I still support that. This pen is better for drawing and coloring, and plus it bleeds really, really badly. So I'm going to actually put some paper underneath my paper so I don't get my table all dirty. But you'll kind of see it doesn't have the same give that the other pens have, so it makes a letter a lot harder. So it's just not really designed for brush lettering. It's better for coloring and shading, and plus, as you'll see, it bleeds really badly. And on to our paintbrushes. When I first started watercolor lettering, I started out with this pen right here. I got it, this paintbrush right here. I got it at Hobby Lobby. It's the 2/0 size, which I really like for brush lettering. And sorry, I'm trying to get it to focus on it so you can see that. It's the Fine Touch, so it's their cheaper art brand. I believe it was $2.99 for a set of 4 different sizes. And the one that I usually use now is a little bit nicer. It's also from Hobby Lobby, and it's the exact same size, the 2/0. But this one's the Master's Touch, and I think it was $4.99 for this single paintbrush, but it's a little bit nicer. This one, the paint started flaking, and I think that's probably because I left it in my water cup too long, and it's my own fault. But I wanted a little bit nicer paintbrush. I purchased this when they had their Master's Touch single brushes 50% off, and I do believe that they run that promotion once a month. So I wouldn't recommend buying any other paintbrushes. It's the Master's Touch brand when they are regular price. As for the paints that I use, my favorite set is this set right here. Actually, there's 2 of them. This is the Prang brand. I used them in high school when I took an art class, so I really like them. They're not chalky like some of the brands that you get that are fairly cheap. I believe they were $12.99 for this set right here that I have, and I lost the container they came in, unfortunately. But they still work really good. But you don't have to use that brand. I also have this set, which is just the Master's Touch brand from Hobby Lobby, the generic Hobby Lobby brand. So this works just as good if you want to start out with something cheap. Kind of see what this does. You can see I had a bit of a boo-boo there. That's okay. But on to what I am going to teach you. When you start out with calligraphy, what you need to learn are the strokes and kind of master the thick and thins. So what I would recommend your first time trying brush lettering is to make several lines of thick strokes. These are your down strokes, and in calligraphy, Your down strokes are your thicker strokes. And your goal is to get these as consistent as possible and to kind of master this motion. And you do not need to go as fast as I'm going. You can take this really slow. And here I'm going to demonstrate with my Tombow how much easier I believe this is. I think consistency is a lot easier with a brush pen than an actual paintbrush. But it is still possible with your paintbrush. The second stroke that you need to master is the thin one. So I would recommend just doing several lines of thin strokes. And I'm not really paying attention to my dots and the size of these lines. But if I was lettering, I definitely would make sure that everything was consistent. And I would recommend doing several lines and several pages of your thick and your thins before moving on to anything else. Once you are ready for a little bit more, move on. See, that one wasn't very even. Kind of a hallmark of a beginner. And I'm going to go back and kind of cheat and make it look like it was even, which is perfectly okay. Just want to go down, then up, and fix it. Down and then up. Down and you're up. And feel free to pick up your paintbrush. You do not need to do this all in one stroke. Oops. Hi, Harper. Sorry, my dog nosing me. She's really wanting to play ball right now. I was demonstrating. And then once you've done several lines of that, making sure your down strokes are thick and your up strokes are thin, you can do a solid line of them. So, whoops, a little bit too thick right there, but that's okay. I have found that if my paintbrush gets too dry, I have less control over the ink that goes down, and my strokes tend to be less consistent. Again, I'm a beginner myself, but I figured that I could share these very easy strokes with you so you can learn with me. And once you learn how to do this, you can move on to letters. But it's very important to master these strokes, or you will be very disappointed with your lettering when you do begin to try the letters. But for the very end of this, I'll show you how to do the first few lowercase letters, or at least the way that I usually do them. Around the top, thick down, back up. There's your A. Make a circle, thick down. And as for the B's, several different ways that you can make a B with brush lettering, but this is my favorite. Start with my loop, bring it down, and that one's a little bit uneven, so I'm going to come back through and fix it a little bit. That one's a little bit too thick there. That's okay. As we practice, we'll get better and better with each letter. I'll give you two more. And there's several different ways you can do each letter. This is kind of a fun way to do the D. You can shake things up a little bit. I'm running out of ink halfway through my letters. I follow several different letterers on my Instagram, and many of them have process videos, and I've found that it's taught me a lot about making my letters. Something I believe I actually did not go over is how I hold my paintbrush. I know this is kind of late at the end of the video, but better late than never, right? When I first started doing my brush lettering, I was having difficulties because I was trying to hold it just like regular, and it was making it difficult to get consistent down strokes. So my letters didn't look very good with both the paintbrush and the brush pen. The initial reason why I didn't think that this was a good brush, a good pen, was because I was using it incorrectly. And the way that I hold both my paintbrush and my brush pen is to the side, so it makes it very easy to have the thick down stroke and then the thin up stroke. Down stroke. So that's the way I recommend. And again, I'm a beginner, so there may be a better way to do this, but these are just my tips and the way that I do things. And if you are left-handed, unfortunately, I don't have many recommendations for you as I'm not left-handed, but I know that there are many successful left-handed calligraphers out there. And I would assume that you would hold the pen the exact opposite way so you could still have that control, but I'm not left-handed, so I'm not even going to try to demonstrate what it would be like. And like I said, there's many calligraphers on Instagram you can follow, and some of them even tag their calligraphy so that you can find left-handed calligraphers. And I'm not sure what that specific tag is, but that would be a lot of help if any of you all out there are left-handed. But again, I am Holly Ely, and this was an intro to brush lettering. You can follow me on Instagram at the Harper Paper Company, and you can see all my lettering and my Bible journaling there. And I'm on Periscope at Hollygale Ely 3, and I've never done a Periscope. This is actually my first recording right here. But thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.